a lot of American companies have moved jobs overseas. The apparel jobs have moved overseas. Our once great apparel district has all moved to China. The shoe industry has moved abroad. I think there are certain low value added manufacturing jobs that clearly are going to go abroad. But I think there are a lot of good jobs that could remain in the United States. Even auto jobs, jobs making machinery, software engineering jobs. But I fear that too many companies, too many CEOs, almost reflexively think, well, let's just move the jobs overseas. Labor costs are cheaper there. And we're seeing some companies saying, well, it's not working out as well as we should, and they move companies back here. But I often think, and again, I support free trade. I'm not a protectionist, but I think way too often companies think, let's just move the jobs overseas, and they show very little loyalty to the United States and to American workers. And I'm all for increased foreign aid. I'm all for developing lower income countries, but I think too often we're not taking care of our knitting back home. We're not doing enough to support American workers. At a time when we are losing jobs to, we used to make a lot of TVs here. Now they're mainly made in China. So we have to figure out ways to create new jobs here, and not just jobs at Target and Home Depot and Walmart. I think President Obama has it right. We need to invest in R&D. We need to educate our people more. We're far behind the Japanese, the Taiwanese, the Germans, the Spaniards in green jobs, whether it's making hybrid cars or solar panels or wind turbines. We're way behind other countries. And I think, again, we have to pull up our socks. We have to pay attention. We have to take care of our knitting. And we really haven't. We've been so focused on financial engineering, where so many of our best and brightest have really gone in recent years. I think we as a nation have to refocus and make things and create jobs, not just for the 30-year-olds who are get their $2 million jobs on Wall Street, but we have to try to figure out how to create good jobs for the middle class. We need more people going into teaching. We need more people going into engineering. And I think the vibes they're getting from Washington is they're really trying to make some of that happen. Now you could discuss collateral debt swaps. Okay.
No, I'd like to just continue what you were saying, because in fact, Mrs. Stein's question was obviously very pertinent to your book, but it's also very pertinent to the global economy. Last night in Miami, after the speech I gave there, I was meeting with someone from Guatemala who's studying at Oxford, by the way. And we were talking about precisely that issue, that this desire in the United States and in Europe to do the right thing for workers in our own countries often leads us to do the wrong thing in other countries. And you say that you mentioned the $2 figure. That was the exact figure that we were talking about last night. And my question to this person, who's very very smart and obviously knows Guatemala very well, is $2 a lot of money? Is it not enough money? He said, if the people who would work for $2 in a Nike factory, for example, would be earning twice as much as they would earn in a coffee plantation, and they would be working outdoors and in the heat and the humidity. So the idea that we cannot necessarily define on our own what's right for someone in another part of the world, and that's kind of the idea of free markets, that you let the market decide. The interesting thing is that it doesn't. Just because you give a job to someone in Guatemala or in Vietnam or even in China, that doesn't necessarily mean you're taking jobs away from someone in the United States. This is the idea of fusion economics. It does create energy. That I have a website called fusioneconomics.com where I go into some of these issues. And one of the examples I use is the iPod. That the iPods that are mostly produced in China, people think, well, why aren't we producing these in the United States? When in fact, when you look at the cost of the iPod, which is, if you bought them or if you bought them for your children or your grandchildren, are into the hundred to the three-digit figures, $4 are spent to produce them. And so where is the rest of that money going? It's going into the pockets of the advertising people, the marketing people, the people in Cupertino who are sitting around coming up with these brilliant ideas. So just the fact that you're giving a job to someone in China and you're paying them a lot less than you would pay someone here, doesn't necessarily mean that you're removing the possibility for American workers to actually earn more money. But then you get back to the whole question is where does all this money go? And then that's the whole issue of then deciding as a society, where do you want to distribute the wealth? But to take the view that there's just a limited amount of wealth, and if we need to keep it for ourselves, it kind of goes against this whole sort of new age, which is part of the 21st century economy, that there's a lot of energy out there. Let's just try to find ways to use it.